Hi everybody, welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark. Now today I've got a day off work and I'm going up to the National Motorcycle Museum in Birmingham. Normally I wouldn't do something like that on my own. I mean, I'd never go to a restaurant or the cinema on my own, but I think a museum's a very personal thing and there's going to be some things that I'm interested in that other people wouldn't be. And after all my mates are at work today anyway, so I'm going to head off up there right now. So the one decision I do need to make is whether I take my bike or whether I take their car. Now, if I take the bike, I'm not going to go up the motorway because it's quite a long way, it's quite boring, and on a motorway on this bike it's not fantastic. So I'll be taking the A roads and the B roads. Problem is, at the moment, they're really mucky, oily, wet, and it's absolutely freezing outside at the moment, although you can't probably tell from the camera. On the other hand, I could take my car and I could travel in warmth and comfort, and I'll be up there in about an hour straight up the M5. So, a bit of a no-brainer really. So of course I took the bike. I mean, why wouldn't I? And I've got to say, I am absolutely freezing. Taking the A roads and B roads up to the Motorcycle Museum, and you'll see I've just gone past the sign there that says road closed, so I probably should have listened to my sat-nav. Anyway, I was saying that museums are a very personal thing. And the reason this is so personal to me is because my granddad, who I knew as Papa, was an absolute motorbike nut. And back in the day, he owned several motorbikes and went on to become a dispatch rider in the RAF during the Second World War. So the bike I've got a picture of him with is actually a BSA, and I've done my bit of research, and from what I can see, it's actually called a BSA Sloper. Now, I've never seen one of these in real life, so I am dying to see if there's one in the museum. And not only that, but I've got a picture of two of his sisters. I think he was one of 11. And these two sisters are sat on a Royal Enfield. So as far as I can tell, this is actually their bike, and the reason I say that is because my research would suggest that that round part at the front is in fact the fuel tank, and there is no crossbar where you would normally find the fuel tank. So we've got two ladies sitting on top of what was considered to be a lady's bike, which makes a lot of sense. I did say it was going to be cold and mucky, and right now the only warm part of me is my hands from being in the heated gloves. As for the muck, well, you can see it's all over the lens of the camera. I am covered from head to foot. The bike's covered in what I can only think is water mixed with manure and salt, and we've only been going for 45 minutes. Right, so let's crack on then. Here we go, and we've finally arrived at the Motorcycle Museum 1 hour and 40 minutes later up the A and B roads of the Cotswolds, and as I've said, I'm freezing and filthy, but they do say that there is somewhere here that you can leave your kit once you get in. It's a safe place, so let's get in here. There's a barrier to get through. I don't know why, there's nobody stood there, so you just let straight through the barrier and off we go into the car park. Loads of space in this car park, and I do know that if you're a friend of the museum and you help out, they let you take the bikes out on occasion and you get to ride them around this enormous car park, so that'd be great fun. That'd be worth doing that just to get to ride the bikes. So I'm just going to look for somewhere to park and then we'll get on in and go and see the museum. So from the moment you walk in, there are bikes everywhere, and this is the canteen area where there's a BSA. This one's actually for sale. It's around about £5,000, and it makes you wonder why you'd buy one of those new ones if you could buy a classic for that sort of money. Anyway, right next to that is where you can leave your coats and all your wet gear. I wouldn't say it's secure, it's just somewhere to leave it. So then we move off into the foyer. This is just the first part of where the bikes are, and already you can see there's another bike for sale there. This time it's a Triumph Flat Tracker. This one's about £10,000, which is a bit rich for my money, but it's a 1969 bike, same age as me, so that's nice to see. And there's all the really old bikes from the early 1900s, which is the start of the museum. So as you walk in, you will see you've got these halls. There's 5 of these halls that are packed to the rafters with bikes. Never seen anything like it. It's just staggering, and there's bikes and makes that you've never heard of in here. Now, the one thing about the museum on a Friday is if you go on a Friday at 11:30 in the morning, they do a free tour. So I just joined onto that. You just meet up at the entrance and they take you around. It was fascinating, and some of the stuff they showed us, like the history of BSA and the history of Sunbeam and stuff like that, and you can see the differences of the bikes as you go through the eras. Absolutely brilliant. So here's a few things that I learned. For example, there's a make of bike called a Hawker. Who knew that? And that was around from about 1920 to 1923. So there we go, Hawker motorcycles. Now, this one is the most expensive bike in the collection. So it's a Brough Superior Dream, and it's only one of 3 that was ever made. So this one uses all original Brough parts. It doesn't actually use any parts from any other bikes, which they did with all their other models. So everything's made for this bike. And it makes it worth north of £1 million. Not that you'd be able to buy one, because only 3 were ever made, and none of them are for sale. And this bike is the Brough SS100, which is worth only a mere couple of £100,000 compared to that other one. And it's the sort of bike that Lawrence of Arabia used to ride around on. Then you've got bikes made by Wilkinson before they made razor blades and swords. So does anyone else think that this looks like a prototype for a Triumph Rocket 3? Or is that just me? One thing that interested me was this bike, which is from World War One, which is a Clino, and it's quite a small bike, but has a very big machine gun with it, compared to this, which is a World War Two bike made by Norton. The bike's much bigger, but the machine gun's got a lot smaller. And then one of the other things that amused me was that every single bike in this place has got a drip tray underneath it, and every single drip tray has got oil in it. So I did have a little smile to myself about that, and I thought, well, that is obviously the reason why we buy new bikes that look old rather than just buying old bikes. And in fact, there's the one bike that didn't leak any oil because it's made of wood. Now, do you remember I told you I wanted to find my granddad's bike, and also his sisters had a bike as well, which would be great to find those. I didn't think they'd be in here. Well, I turned around one corner, there was a section of Royal Enfield, and would you believe it, there's the exact bike, not their actual bike, but exactly the same model of Royal Enfield, and there they are compared side by side. And that was a real treat to see. But that wasn't all, because I was looking down the row of BSAs, and as I got down this row, I couldn't believe it, but of course there it was, a BSA Sloper, and it was from exactly the same year that my granddad's bike was from as well. So this may well have been in the factory at the same time as his bike. It was absolutely magical. And then I had a chat with the guy who took us round on the tour, and he said to me, I'll tell you what, I'll let you go and have a sit on that bike and I'll take your picture. So there I am, actually sat on the bike next to the picture of my grandpa there. What a fantastic experience. It really made my day. And you know, the museum staff didn't have to let me sit on that bike, but I'd shown them the picture and they said, yeah, come on, get on, no problem at all. What a great moment that was. But then that was about it for me. I went back, had a bite to eat in the canteen and a look around the gift shop just to finish off. I would highly recommend this place as a day out for all of you motorcycle nuts. It really is magical, and it makes no difference whether you're with a bunch of mates or whether you're on your own. It's great either way. Well, that's about it from me, so take it easy, keep your chains oiled, and I'll see you all soon.